Well, I fucking called it. If you've been paying attention to my channel or my blog, you probably might have noticed that about a year ago, when Marvel first announced that they were going to be introducing a new female Thor, I pointed out this was pretty much just a blatant act of pandering to feminists that would be ultimately pointless, used to spread propaganda, and would essentially suck more than the collective lineup for Naughty America. Of course, I didn't really expect how blatantly obvious they would be about it, but whew. So I recently read this new article from Breitbart, which drew my attention back to the whole female Thor thing, because they were calling out the obvious feminist attempts to co-opt the comic. You can read the article yourself in the low bar, but this basically convinced me to finally actually go back and, read the comic myself. Something which I'd never opted to do before because, well, quite literally, I had not even a tenth of a fuck to give. But I did it anyways, and here we are, and all I can really say is fuck. Now, I only actually read, the first two and, the fifth one because, well, those are the only ones I actually found online to download, and there was no fucking way that I was actually paying for this shit. So, it's entirely possible that the mid-two that I'm missing are better than the others, but it would pretty much have to start teleporting a harem of Japanese prostitutes directly into my room and come with free cake before I even considered it halfway decent. Now, just to reiterate for the first part what I actually mentioned in the previous video, the main reason that this idea is stupid is that there is no possible reason to do it, at least narratively. Marvel is already full of female superheroes. They just aren't as prominent because female characters tend not to sell as well, for reasons we'll get into another time. So if you wanted a female solo comic, then there are literally dozens of already existing female superheroes who already have existing fan bases that you could have used. Or, for that matter, you could have just created an entirely new character. But no, instead they took a pre-existing character with a pre-existing fan base and checked him out. And I do mean they checked him out. They can't go more than 5 fucking pages without pointing out how Thor is now a girl. But we'll get to that later too. My point is that instead of trying to make a comic with a good female character that would hopefully sell well, they took an existing male character and ruined his comic. Basically pointing out to us what we already knew: the only way to create a good female character is to start with a man. Thank you, feminists. Oh, and to all of you bozos who keep trying to defend this shit by saying, oh well, Thor has been turned into a girl before. I know that, but at least the last time they did it, it wasn't a bunch of pandering ideological bullshit to the lowest common denominator, so fuck you. And no, I am not exaggerating at all or being in any way inaccurate when I say that this is made solely to pander to feminists. It is painfully, horrifically, ham-fistedly obvious that this was written by feminists. How is it obvious? Well, let me go down the list. Number 1. Every male character, including Odin and Thor, are suddenly macho, chauvinistic assholes who treat women as inferior. Number 2. Every female character is suddenly right and wise and virtuous and due to take their proper place if only the men wouldn't stop them. 3. And I mentioned this one before, but it bears repeating, that every character focuses solely on the fact that Thor is now a woman. In fact, Thorina really has no character aside from being a woman, and a feminist strong woman at that, which makes her about as interesting and compelling a character as you would think it does. Number 4, the character is treated as special solely because she is a woman, despite the fact that she does nothing out of the ordinary for any other superhero, and has no special qualities or accomplishments under her belt. In fact, why the fuck she is even worthy of Thor's hammer is beyond me, and the comic sure as hell doesn't bother to tell us either. She's just worthy because vagina. I have some others, but you get my point. So, let's take a look at the comic itself. So the whole thing starts off with Odin being gone for a while and his wife Freya being left in charge of things at home. Upon his return, he finds out that Thor has lost his abilities to lift his hammer because apparently while battling on the moon, Thor encountered Nick Fury, who was in possession of some sort of secrets and shit that he got from the Watcher. After the whole moon situation is resolved, Fury leans over to Thor and whispers something into his ear. Upon hearing what Fury is whispering to him, Thor drops the hammer to the ground and is thereafter unable to pick it up. Because Fury whispered something. I'm going to repeat that just so you can quite grasp the level of fuckness involved. Fury whispered something to Thor that altered his mind, thought processes, personality, and soul so much that it rendered him instantly unworthy of being the god of thunder. In fact, so much so that Thor goes into a deep depression and by issue 5 is essentially a drunken lush who needs to be carried out of the bar by the Warriors 3 as he mumbles piteously under his breath after getting a mug of ale tossed into his face by Lady Sif. Of course, for some strange reason, they never actually tell you what it was that Fury said to Thor. Well, I know the reason. If I were a cynical person, I would say that this is because they had no good reason for this, and they're just trying to make it vague and mysterious to give them a bullshit barrier to retreat behind. That way, when people call them out on how stupid it is, they can claim that they're saving it for a dramatic reveal, or they thought it would be, more mysterious and better for the story if they didn't tell anyone. Anyways, the entirety of Asgard turns up around the broken and despondent Thor, who does not eat or sleep and has spent the previous days sitting half naked on the moon, talking to his hammer like a heartbroken lover. I am so fucking not kidding. Apparently, each of the mightiest warriors and gods of Asgard tried to lift the hammer. I say apparently because they don't bother to actually show this, and none of them could do it. So Odin comes in and gets the exposition on what happened, in the process managing to be both callous and a dick to his son, while blaming this all on leaving a woman in charge of Asgard. So, since none of Asgard's greatest and mightiest heroes can lift the hammer, Odin decides he's had enough and goes to grab it himself. And can't lift it. But the father of the gods, the All-Father, one true ruler of Asgard, mightiest of all the gods, El Grand Asgardian Mac-Daddy Supremo, the one who put the enchantment on the goddamn hammer in the first place, cannot lift it. Why? Because fuck you! That's why. The comic answers a lot of questions that way. So Odin is busy throwing a hissy fit like a little girl who didn't get a pony for her birthday when he gets a message that the frost giants are apparently invading Earth. To which Odin declares that none of that is their problem and it's time for them to get out of there, thus leaving humanity to the big frost giant gangbang. Freya tries to use her authority as All-Mother to rally the soldiers of Asgard to protect Earth, but Odin essentially tells her to get back in the kitchen where she belongs, and then leave with the hammer still on the moon. Fucking hell. They do realize that Odin is supposed to be the god of wisdom. The writers did get that right. Now, Thor does go to fight the frost giants, of course, but he gets his ass kicked and his arm cut off within the first few panels by Malekith, who then wears his arm like a trophy around his neck throughout. And it's subtle, but you can see from this picture there, right? It's subtle, but you can just see that little middle finger is just kind of sticking out. A message to all the Thor fans from Marvel. So as the hammer sits there alone on the moon, some unidentified woman picks it up without effort, and for some reason, boom, she's Thor. Fuck this comic. I can't even begin to tell you all how astoundingly unimpressive this new Lady Thor is. Part of it is because there is literally nothing to her character aside from having the hammer and female lady bits. The comic implies that the woman who took up the hammer is some other woman from the Thor mythos, but they try to keep her identity secret and they go out of her way to not give it away because there's this whole subplot with Thor trying to figure out who she is, blah 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 blah. This means that we only ever really see her interact with her foes, aside from couple occasional other scenes where she has one with Freya and another one with Thor, but basically we never actually see anything of her personality, assuming she fucking has one. Even the enemies just gawk at how weird the idea of a female Thor is, like she's some cheap carnival novelty act. Which, admittedly, is exactly what she is, but they shouldn't make it so fucking obvious. Another part of this is because what character she does have is utterly inconsistent from one moment to the next. When Thor at first transforms, she essentially turns from whatever she looked like before into a female version of Thor. She also, for some reason, seems to have gotten Thor's archaic speaking patterns and knowledge about Asgard and other things magical and mystical. But along with her spoken words, she has these constant thought bubbles, remarking on what she's doing, as though she's an observer in her body while her body is doing the work. The effect it gives is it seems like she's actually being possessed by Thor or some other entity, but she's still aware of it. Yet she also demonstrates that she's also in control of her actions to at least some extent, so it's a really strange thing that you end up with her. The voice in her head makes it sound like she's some, in over her head rookie who has no idea what the fuck she's doing or how to fight, and I can't tell you how lame this is, because it essentially means she's not actually doing any of this on her own. The hammer, which is what the entity is kind of implied to be, is propping her up and doing everything for her. There's one part in the second book where she actually asks the hammer to let her take the lead and do something. She shows absolutely no strength of will or character, no particular bravery or any redeeming qualities that might make her a worthy successor of Thor. She just hits shit and blows shit up with lightning, and doesn't even do that on her own. She doesn't even demonstrate any particular level of intelligence or wisdom. Certainly no technical knowledge. She runs into a group of frost giants, she hits them with the hammer and blasts them with lightning. I think that's what she did anyways. The artwork is such shit, I could be wrong, but she shot blue lines of stuff at them. She runs into the next group of frost giants, she throws her hammer at them, losing it in the process. She runs into the absorbing man in Titania, and she wins through the power of feminism and the sisterhood. No, I am not fucking kidding. But I'll save that crowning turd to be flushed last. Anyways, I'll have the second part of this up in a day or two. In the meantime, like and subscribe and... Oh, fuck this comic. Fucking feminists.